What's up, dude? In 2024, we made some really hearty recipes here on this channel. And so I wanted to finish the year by showing you 3 of my top comfort food recipes that I know are just clear winners. And as always, there is no time to waste. Now let's go! The first recipe we're gonna be making today is beef stroganoff. And this one is near and dear to my heart because I grew up eating this meal for celebrations and birthdays in my house. We would be begging my mom for this dish as often as we could. A great stroganoff always starts with the beef, and for that I'm using flank steak. This is such a great cut for dishes where you need to flour it and then fry it first before putting it into a sauce. Today we're making stroganoff, but recently I used this same cut for Mongolian beef and it was just extraordinary. Lightly crisp and just tender as hell. And I'll just start slicing this across. Not too thick, not too thin, something just like that. Just straight across, makes it really easy to slice when you're using this flank steak. A great aspect of this cut is having that fat run right through it like that. That really helps with the tenderness and the flavor. Now, rather than season the flour, I would have you season the beef first so you can visually see how much salt is going on there. If you put it in the flour, you never use all that flour. It's kind of hard to judge how much seasoning you've used. And I'm using a little bit of my homemade rosemary salt. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I'm gonna put a link to the recipe and video down in the description. It's a homemade salt. It's got rosemary, sage, garlic, and lemon. It is phenomenal. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. And a little bit of Sergeant Gilbert reporting for duty. That is fresh ground sentient black pepper. He's awesome.
Please, someone help me.
Now, give it a good mix. I'll do a little more salt, and then that's ready for the next step. For the dredge, I'm using all-purpose flour, and we're also gonna add just 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to this, which will help us retain a little light crunch even after putting it into a wet sauce. It's a good trick. Now some onion powder. God, I love onion powder. Just adds some really nice flavor, and a little bit of garlic powder. Give it a good whisk. Where am I? And just drop all your beef straight into that flour. And toss. Just because we're funny on this channel doesn't mean we don't take our dishes seriously, all right? In fact, quite the opposite, dude.
They taste good.
They taste better because we're not all serious. This needs to be a little bit more square, and you can't do that.
In a flow state. Look at this.
That's a flow state. That's flowing, you understand? What I like to do next is put it straight into a strainer to get off that excess flour. If you don't get off that flour, it's gonna dirty up your oil extremely quickly, and I don't want that. We just want a light coating of flour. Next step, frying the beef, and I happen to have some leftover beef fat from the beef stock I just made. You could obviously just use a high smoke point oil for this or clarified butter, but seeing as how I have this and it's a beef dish, it ain't gonna be bad. You know what I mean? And I'm doing quite a lot. Oh, it smells so good. You smell that, Marcus? Is that good? Heat's around medium high. Once that oil or fat is hot, let's just start dropping our beef. And I'm actually remembering the order I'm putting this in, right? If that's 12 on a clock and this is 6 down here, I'm gonna flip these over in the same way I put them in, 2 in the middle. And that's it, that's my limit. I wouldn't overcrowd the pan, don't put more than you need to. It's much better just to fry it in smaller batches. After about 2 minutes, I'm gonna flip them. When they're nice and golden brown, this is violently painful. That's some sizzling beef, baby. Woo! Now we're cooking. Ah! Flip those 2 in the middle for me, will you? Perfect. Now once you've seared that other side, we can just remove them. I like to put them on a little sheet pan here with a rack. This just looks perfect, just the perfect little crisp. Now just do the rest of your beef. Probably will take 2 more rounds. I dare you to try and not eat one of these while you're cooking this dish. It's impossible. Marcus, you can choose any one you want. Not that one.
Okay. I'll take that one then.
The texture is just so fun to eat. Mwah. Marcus, how long do you think it will take me to slice up these mushrooms? I don't know. Challenge accepted! Disclaimer, if you're not a professional chef or really good with a knife, do not try this at home. And do not gesture with your knife.
Are you ready?
Yes, chef.
This matters too much to you. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Done.
Show the fingers, no blood, no blood.
What's my time?
Oh,
You didn't stop it?
18-ish.
Okay, 15 mushrooms. I think there was 15 in 18 seconds. That's a little over a second per mushroom. I could do better. Honestly, back in my day, I could have done that like
1 second.
Like if you were to blink, it would be done. Now in that same pan, medium-high heat, let's add the mushrooms. Do not want to waste all the flavor that's in that pan. And I'm not even gonna season these now. Because of the ingredients going into the stroganoff, we want to do that towards the end of the cooking process. Okay, mushrooms have been going for about 10 minutes. Got some beautiful color on them. Remember, the more color you get on your mushrooms, the more flavor you're gonna get into your sauce as it washes off into it. Now, same pan, touch more fat or oil, and in goes the onion. 1 yellow onion, julienne, sliced. And we're gonna do the same thing with this onion. Cook it down for about 10-12 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. Once you're happy with the color on your onions, we're adding a little bit of garlic and some fresh thyme. I'll cook this down for about 2 minutes. At this point, I'm adding a little bit of dry white wine. If you don't use alcohol in your cooking, you can do a mixture of lemon juice and white wine vinegar. That will work too. Straight in. Let's get those mushrooms back in there. Oh, right now, it just starts smelling so good. Once you get that wine involved, oh man. Woo. I like to cook the wine down until it's pretty much dry in the pan. You just see a little bit of liquid there. At this point, little dash of Worcestershire sauce. That adds a nice punch of flavor. Now beef stock going in. Ooh! If you use homemade, it's gonna be really good. If you wanna use a concentrate, I'm totally fine with that too. This is homemade. At this point, we're gonna bring the heat back into this and start another reduction. We are punching down, packing down flavors. What do you think I have under here?
I don't know.
About 5 minutes before your beef stroganoff is done, this is when you want to cook your egg noodles. A lot of times I eat it with rice, sometimes mashed potatoes. I like egg noodles a lot. I'm going to do that today. Salt the water, and we'll drop in our egg noodles. They cook really fast. Only takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes has elapsed. You could definitely use a strainer. A lot of times I'll just pull it out with tongs like this because I actually want a little bit of water in the bowl there. It'll help emulsify with the oil and the butter, which is coming next. Now we're going to throw in a little unsalted butter and a little touch of extra virgin olive oil. I'm sorry about that, guys. Dump that, cut that. And there's plenty of heat in this bowl just to melt that oil and butter. I'm just gonna keep it really simple. I don't wanna put any salt because there's salt in that pasta water. It's gonna be fine. Here we go, set these aside. Sauce has reduced by about 80%. As you can see, it just looks so good. This looks so full of flavor. At this point, I'm going in with a little bit of Dijon mustard. I like the acidity and try to mix it in one little section to really get it mixed before dispersing. I like the acidity from it. I like the salt it brings as well. And keep that heat a little bit low. At this point, we're gonna start working in the cream. And I'm really going by color when I pour this in. In the past, I've put too much cream in this dish in my earlier video when I started doing YouTube. And it was really good, but I just wanted to retain this beautiful, deep, rich brown color. So I'm just doing about a tablespoon at a time and working it in before continuing. And I honestly think I'm gonna do a little more and that's it. That was only a 1/4 cup. So let's leave it at that. Baby. Now we're gonna start working in just a little bit of cubes of cold unsalted butter, just to bring that velvety richness at the end. So keep the heat low, let that butter emulsify in. My God, this looks good. At this point, you want your sauce to be not super thick, just a little bit thick, because remember all the flour on the beef and the cornstarch is really gonna thicken it up. Before you finish, before you plate, be a good chefy and taste your sauce. Really good. Now, beef. Beef in. Remember, this beef is totally cooked through. All we need to do here is basically warm it up. Heat it up a little bit, 2-3 minutes tops in the sauce. Oh. If you feel brave, you can give it a little toss. Oh my God, come on guys. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? This is what's up. Beef's been in for a minute or two. I want to give it one more final taste. It's just near perfect. A light dusting of salt, just preference. That's it. Shut it down. Look at that. Woo! All right, my friends, let's plate it up. And I like doing a little bit of sour cream right on top as opposed to in the sauce. Guys, the recipe will be in the description. If you want it creamier, you can add more cream, but that rich sauce with the sour cream on top, I mean, how good, it looks good, right? Here we go. I'm just gonna try the beef first.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Doing it all.
Bro.
Oh my God. Wow. I mean, we cook a lot of beef. That's some of the most flavorful beef I've ever had. Look, if we don't say anything, it means it's good.
It's silence for a reason.
Why does this beef happen?
I don't know. The sauce and the beef are so rich and full of flavor, so to have those noodles just lightly salted with the olive oil and butter all together in one bite with that sour cream on top, come on.
Man, try that
Oh
one.
my God, make that.
Try that one.
The next recipe we're gonna make today is beef ragu with pappardelle pasta. It's slow cooked, fatty beef shredded and mixed with a beautiful pasta. What's not to love? My friends, this is one you are definitely gonna wanna make. Now let's go! For starters, when it comes to choosing your beef for this recipe, just make sure you buy something that has a lot of fat marbled into the meat. Today, I'm using boneless short ribs. If you can find short ribs on the bone, that's even better because those bones are gonna add a ton of flavor to your braising liquid. And if you can't find those, you can always use the trustworthy chuck roast. That is always gonna be good for braising. It's like your standard M16 of slow cooking meat. I just cut my boneless short ribs into cubes about this size, and I'm just hitting them with a little bit of rosemary salt. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, I will put a link to that video and recipe down in the description. It's just a homemade herb and garlic salt that we make on this channel, and considering the holidays are coming up, you have to learn this one because it is so perfect for holiday cooking. And I'm just gonna flip my beef as I season here so I can kind of get all sides, just like so. Don't want to overdo it. We can always add more later if we need. And just a little bit of Sergeant Gilbert reporting for duty, which is just black pepper, and I'll do the same thing, getting it on all sides. The next step is to sear off your beef. I've got a preheated pan here. It's been on medium-high heat for about 3-4 minutes. I'm just gonna add a little bit of neutral oil. This is just avocado oil, and I'll just carefully lower in my beef and cook it for about 3 minutes on that first side, or until it's got a really nice, deep, rich brown color. Then flip it and repeat that process on the other side before removing from the pan. Just make sure you don't take that pan to the sink to clean it. We're gonna use it right now. And what we're gonna use it for is the cooking off of the tomato paste that goes into this recipe. For some reason, when you use tomato paste straight from the can or tube, they have this weird sort of sour tinge to them that's not really nice, and when you cook it off, the flavor really changes, it deepens. And by the way, this is the only way to take tomato paste out of the box. Just, you know. And cooking it off and all that beef fat and juice can only do it a lot of good. So I'm going in right now, pan's on medium heat, get it all in there. Yeah. And I kind of just smash it down, try to spread it out a little bit and just let it cook. And all you gotta do is give it a stir every 30 seconds or so. And then I like to spread back out. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, you'll see it's dried out a lot and it's totally done. You can also smell the difference. It just smells a lot better now. So what I'll do is just turn my pan off, and then I'll just set this aside for now until we need it. Now in a separate Dutch oven type pot, we're gonna start building the rest of the sauce. If you don't have one of these, just use whatever pot you got. And you may be wondering why I didn't sear the beef in this pot. That's a great question. I think you're very observant, Brian. It's gonna be crazy if your name was Brian. So I definitely have seared meat in pots like this before, but it doesn't give it a really good sear. And what I noticed is by the time the meat actually browns, the side of the pots have gone completely black. And then you combine that with the fact that you're about to add a bunch of wet ingredients that'll wash away all that blackness, and it's just a recipe for a bad stew. Overall, a steel pan or a carbon steel pan or a cast iron pan is just gonna do a much better job at searing your meat. For the tomatoes, I simply bought San Marzano tomatoes, but you can just use whatever tin tomato you can find. And mine actually came in whole pieces like this, so I just got in there with my hand and squished it up. And to be honest with you, I actually just kind of like doing this. I don't know, it's something satisfying about this. And I'll just leave it a little bit chunky. The pot's on medium heat. I'm gonna start by adding the olive oil, and not exactly traditional, but a little butter in here is really nice. And then we're gonna add our carrots and onion, celery can off. And we're gonna first start by cooking this down for about 8 minutes. I'll also do one more little pinch of rosemary salt and a bit more of Sergeant Gilbert's insides. If you want at this point, you could also add garlic. I personally try to leave it out of any kind of braised meaty things. I just feel like the flavor is a little strong. Don't get me wrong, I love garlic, just not in everything. So what I'm going in with now is a little bit of thyme, just stripped off the stem, and just a little touch of chili flake. Not much at all, but enough for a little subtle heat. I love the way that thyme crackles, listen, as it hits the hot oil. So I'll go another 30 seconds with those 2 ingredients. And now we're going in with our tomato paste, which I'll just work in like so. Wow, this already just smells so good. A minute with the tomato paste, and now I'm adding my red wine. It's just Cabernet Sauvignon, and I don't like too much wine, so I do a little bit less than most recipes you're gonna see out there. It's important now we cook this down first. And just remember, when you're cooking, and especially sauces and braises and stuff like this, we're crunching down and packing down flavors, right? We take the tomato paste right where it needs to be. We take the wine right where it needs to be. Next, we'll do the same thing with the tomatoes and then the beef broth. There's a little bit of rhythm and thought behind the concentration of these flavors, so it's just something to keep in mind when you're cooking. You don't want to just throw everything in at the same time. And you can absolutely just leave the wine out of this recipe, and in place of it, you can use about 1/3 of the amount in red wine vinegar. So if you do a cup of wine in the recipe, do 1/3 cup of red wine vinegar, or maybe even a little less. And after about 5 minutes, our wine has really reduced. It's cooked off as much as it can be. Next, I'm gonna add my crushed tomatoes. Just go ahead and give that a mix in. And much like we did with the tomato paste, we're first gonna cook this down for about 5 minutes, just to concentrate and deepen that tomato flavor. Next, I'm adding in my beef stock, and I also saved a little bit of this beef stock and used it to deglaze the pan that the tomato paste cooked in. I just noticed it still had a bunch of brown bits, so I thought why not use that up in our braising liquid. And I also like adding just a little bit of red wine vinegar because that acid just kind of lifts it up and it makes a heavy dish seem a little bit lighter. The art of balancing fat and acid is cooking. Once you get that right, you're gonna unlock everything. All your favorite foods have it. All we need to do now is add our beef and look at all those juices that came out while the beef rested. Definitely get those in there. Oh, wow. Scrape that out. Now we're just gonna make sure all our beef is nicely submerged. And when it comes to braised dishes, one great trick I learned while working in restaurants is to keep a pastry brush sitting in some warm water. And so as it cooks, you can begin to brush down the sides of the pot like this, which just washes all those little brown bits back into the sauce where it belongs, which does a couple things. I mean, all that stuff on the edge is flavor, so it should be in your stew. And on another great note, you're cleaning it as it's cooking down, so when you go to wash it up later, it will be easy. And if you like pro tips like that, maybe subscribe, hit the little subscribe button. Now all we need to do is develop some patience and let this thing cook. And remember, whenever you're braising meat, you want just a tiny little simmer going, just some light little bubbles around the edges. If you're boiling it, you're gonna ruin it. It's gonna dry out the beef. We wanna cook this very, very gently, so just a touch over low heat. And what I like to do is just put a cracked lid on it like that, so it won't reduce so fast and it can also breathe a little bit. Now while this cooks, let me explain something about ragu. You may have searched for it at one point or another, and you may have found that there's two different spellings for it. One is R-A-G-U and one is R-A-G-O-U-T. Now look, it's not two different spellings, it's two different dishes. The R-A-G-U is the Italian version which we're making today, and it's actually usually made with ground meat cooked in a tomato sauce, much like this one, and it's something you serve with pasta. Now the other ragu with the O-U-T on the end is the French version, and that's a standalone stew, can be made with vegetables or fish or meat. And you can serve that French version with a pasta or a side as well, but it's usually served alone as a standalone stew. I hope that clarifies that issue for you, because I don't see anyone talking about that. Here we are 2.5 hours later, and our beef ragu is done. I tested a little piece of meat. It's nice and tender. I also added about a half cup of water halfway through the cooking process, because as it cooks, even on low temperatures, if it gets too thick, that bottom is gonna catch and stick and possibly burn. And you don't want that, so you can absolutely just add a little bit of water. Now to tell you the truth, guys, ideally you would wanna let this sit for at least an hour before you use it. That meat needs to relax in the sauce. And that's an essential pro tip for braising that makes a world of difference in the tenderness of your meat. To take it a step further, if you make this the day before and let it sit in the fridge overnight and then reheat it the next day, it's gonna be the perfect bite. However, you don't have to do that, but I would recommend you let it rest in here for at least 30 minutes, an hour, even better. Once my meat has rested, all I'm doing now is shredding it up a little bit. I'm using 2 big pieces of wood because I don't want to scratch my pan. If it cools down enough, you could definitely do it with your hands as well. You could also leave bigger chunks of beef in here if you like. I want some kind of shredded and I want some kind of big. I don't want like pulled pork shredded meat, but I want a little bit of shred in there. But I mean, that's totally personal preference, so you can do what you like. All that's left to do now is to cook the pasta, which in this case is pappardelle. Love pappardelle. It's one of my favorite pastas. I don't know, it just feels like there's less chewing that's required for pappardelle. It's really good. And I'm just gonna salt up my water a little bit, not too much. And then I'll go ahead and just drop in my pasta. It cooks really fast, just about 5 minutes. All we gotta do now is add some of our ragu to a pan. If you plan on using all of it at once, you could definitely just toss the pasta into the pot, but I'm not doing all of it. And then I'm just going straight in with my pappardelle. I'm just using tongs to get the pappardelle in there, so we're getting a little bit of pasta water too, but I don't want it to get too watered down, something like this. All you have to do is just toss it up with your pasta and it is literally ready to go. And when you serve it, I highly recommend you shred over some Parmesan cheese and a little parsley if you like. Okay, Marcus, here we go. Oh, and by the way, we're looking forward to this upcoming comfort food season, like saucy, meaty dishes like this. Kind of my thing. Wow, here we go. Oh, that's just beef. Oh man.
I don't really eat pappardelle.
You like it?
I'm a fan.
It's soft, you know? It's like easier to chew.
It's easier to get on a fork too. Easier to eat. I feel like when I eat spaghetti, it shoots up and slaps me in the eye when I'm trying to finish it.
Delicious, so comforting. Like one of those dishes you kind of want to like leave me alone kind of thing. Let me sit over here and eat it. I don't want to be disturbed. That's how I feel.
Definitely worth making.
Delicious. Make it. And for our third and final recipe, I'm gonna show you how to make a classic pot roast. This is definitely one of my favorite recipes of 2024. It was really, really tasty. When it comes to pot roast, I'm almost always choosing chuck roast. It just is your standard M16 of pot roast dinners. I think it's just perfect for braising. However, if you can't find a chuck roast, here are some other cuts you could potentially use. Just remember when you're at the store choosing your beef, just look for a piece where the fat is marbled into the meat. That is so important when you're slow cooking beef. One thing that's definitely gonna make this pot roast stand out a little bit is this rosemary salt. If you know, you know. It's a homemade seasoning we make on this channel. It's got rosemary, garlic, sage, a little touch of lemon zest, and it's popular for a very good reason. I will put a link to that video down in the description as well as the recipe. You just blend it all up. It is super easy. So I'm gonna really take my time here and just season all around. Kind of rub it in a little bit. Oh yeah. Try to get that edge a little bit too, why not? And dip up all this stuff around. Next up, a little bit of Sergeant Gilbert reporting for duty. Wait, where's his little song? Play his little song. There it is. There it is. That's fresh ground black pepper. On another note, you may have noticed I'm not tying up this pot roast. The only reason I would do it is if I thought this was really gonna fall apart, or if I wanted to get some really nice presentation in a circular sort of slice. But I feel like if you're making pot roast, it's not really like you're thinking about presentation too much. At least I'm not. I'm just gonna do the other side now. Let's sear this thing off. Nice hot pan, a little bit of neutral cooking oil. High smoke point is preferred. This is avocado, good amount, about 3 tablespoons of oil. Let it shimmer. A little bit of smoke coming off, not billowing. Careful, we're gonna lay the meat in. Barely gonna fit. Always lay it away from you, right? So if that oil splashes, it splashes somewhere else besides you. Trust me, I've learned the hard way. There we go. A little bit of pressure. It's been going for 5 or 6 minutes. Let's give it a flip. That's about as perfect as a sear can be. Same thing on the other side. When that other side looks good, go ahead and get it out. Set that aside. You can get rid of that pan now. No! Look at all that delicious fond. I'm quite fond of it. God, dude.
That was unreal.
Now I'm going in with some diced onion next. Same pan, heat's about medium. And I'm actually gonna use the moisture that's in these onions and start scraping the bottom right now. You'll understand why in a minute. All that fond is coming right off and it's going into the onions. Man, that smells good. You know when people walk in your house and you're cooking and they always say it smells so good? It's always just onions. It's always onions. It's never not onions. You can see that pan now is completely clean of the fond. Oh, whoops. Onions have been going just for about 6 minutes. Now, I'm getting the onions out into the pot, the Dutch oven that I'm gonna be cooking the pot roast in. I'll tell you why. Because you may just be thinking, why didn't you just sear the chuck roast in that pot? It's because these pots suck for searing meat. Always use a stainless steel pan when you're searing meat. Your sear is gonna be so much better. I've tried searing meat in these pots and I'll have that heat high for like 10 minutes, put the meat in, and it just doesn't get that crust. But what happens is the pan gets all burnt up the sides, which then gets deglazed back into your sauce when you add the wet ingredients. It's just no good. You can experiment for yourself. There may be a cast iron one that doesn't do that, but this sort of enameled material definitely is not great for searing. So I'm just adding some crushed garlic in there right now, which I'll cook down for 3 or 4 minutes, at which point we're gonna add one of my favorite ingredients ever, tomato paste. I say tomato, I still say it. I really love the color this gives your pot roast, as well as a little bit of body and thickness to the sauce. Awesome. Just always remember to cook it down for at least 5 minutes or so first to get rid of that tartness and deepen the flavors. I'm gonna turn the heat down just a touch. Next, I'm going in with some flour. Yes, that's right, flour. I add the flour so I don't end up with a watery sauce. I want something that's just slightly thick. Next up, I'm adding a little bit of oil. Probably can get away with not doing it, but it doesn't hurt. Now, same with the tomato paste, you wanna cook the flour for about 5 minutes. Cook off any of that raw flour taste. Next thing's going in is a little bit of wine, just about a cup. It's just Cabernet Sauvignon. You could use another one. If you don't cook with alcohol, just leave the wine out entirely. It's still gonna be very, very good. Now we're gonna cook this down. Cook down the tomato paste, cook down the flour, cook down the wine. This is how it kind of works. We're packing down these flavors and components. We don't just throw it all in. Wine's cooked down for about 5 minutes. Now I'm going in with a few more kind of unconventional ingredients, but trust me, they're only gonna make it so much better. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce, touch of balsamic vinegar. I know that seems weird, but it's just gonna lift this up a little bit, but I want to explain more about that in a minute. Just a little, 2 teaspoons. And lastly, this Marmite, which is a secret family ingredient recipe that I use for gravies and sauces and any kind of braised things. Think of this like beef bouillon. It is just packed with flavor. And it's gonna add such a nice punch to this dish. I freaking love Marmite. It's to Britain me. I'm gonna work all that in, and now, little by little, we're gonna start adding in our beef stock, which is actually remoulade from our recent beef stock video, and I highly suggest you learn how to make that one. I will put a link to that video at the end of this one. It is really important to know how to do. Now, I'm gonna whisk in the beef stock, let this come back to a boil, or simmer rather. You may also be wondering why there's no vegetables. I like to add those definitely later in the cooking process so they don't overcook. Once that simmers and thickens up again, we're gonna add some more beef stock. Sorry, remoulade. Probably wondering what remoulade is. Watch the video, you'll find out. Give me your views. I want your attention. Attention. Yes, touch me. Give me more views. Look, you could make a pot roast and you could literally use only beef stock, but the whole kind of profile of that, or however you want to call it, will be really flat and mellow. Anybody who's been cooking for any amount of time knows that fat, aka chuck roast, needs to pair beautifully with an acidic ingredient to balance out your dish. The acidic ingredients here is the wine, the tomato paste, the Worcestershire sauce, the balsamic vinegar. Having those acidic ingredients in your sauce paired with that fatty beef is just gonna make the perfect bite. More remoulade. And if you're serious about getting good about cooking, I want you to keep fat and acid in the mind all the time. Putting lime in guacamole is fat and acid. Putting wine in a cream sauce is fat and acid. Even dipping French fries into ketchup is fat and acid. There's a lot of vinegar in that ketchup. You'll be so surprised how just squeezing a little bit of lemon on a piece of grilled chicken can just change the whole experience. Keep it in mind. Last little bit of remoulade going in, and we'll bring it back to a simmer once more. Here we go, my friends. Chuck roast now going in. Look at that. Woo! Oh my God, this is already so exciting. Little juices off the tray, always get those in there. Now I'm gonna put a cracked lid on it. If you watch this channel, you know I love the cracked lid method. It helps it breathe and reduce a little bit while trapping a lot of that heat and steam at the same time. And it's gonna go straight in the oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. You could probably get away with 350 if you want, but low and slow is always good. And we're gonna let that roll first for 2 hours before we move on to these vegetables. Currently it's 10 minutes shy of 2 hours, or an hour and 15 minutes, depending on which way you look at it. Or 10 to 2. It's also another way you could say that. At this point, I'm gonna prepare the vegetables. We're gonna start by just peeling these carrots here, and I'm gonna show you how to cut them into these obliques. Sonny, what's an oblique? Is it like side abs, or like what is that? I'm like, no, dude, it's it's just another way that you cut a vegetable up. And just remember, these carrot peels make incredible trash can stuffers. I don't know, maybe there is something you can do with them, but I feel like I see a lot of people just taking all these vegetable scraps and making stock, but the peels tend to be bitter, and so you end up with some junk stock. Junk. Let me show you this oblique, really easy. I'm just gonna take off that little top, and we're just gonna take an angle like this, cut, and we're gonna roll, and we're gonna cut, and we're gonna roll, we're gonna cut, we're gonna roll. So the knife's always staying in the same position. I'm just rolling the carrot. It's just a nice shape. I just think it's a great shape for stews and such, glazed carrots, roasted carrots, whatever you want to do with carrots. Just when you get down to the end, do a heavier angle so they stay the same sort of mass. That's it. And next to potatoes, I have these smaller red and gold potatoes. I'll take these bigger ones here and just quarter them. And if they're small like this, they'll just go straight in half like so. And I'm gonna drop these potatoes right into some cold water to rinse off some of that excess starch. I fear that if I don't do this, my sauce is gonna end up too thick and sort of gummy from all that excess thickener, which is the starch. So, just like so. There we go, 2 hours on the meat. Let's take a look at it. Oh man, you guys seeing what I'm seeing? You are. That smells so good. I swear, you make this for a dinner party, people are gonna walk in your house, they're gonna say, oh my God, does a Michelin star chef live in this house? They're gonna say, oh my God, are you Gordon Ramsay? Nice to meet you. Here's a tip because that's so good. I haven't even tried it yet, but here's your tip already. Should we dump it? People are gonna smell this and they're gonna walk into your house and they're gonna go, oh my God, what the f? Just dump it all. All right, my friends, potatoes, drop them in, get them around. Make sure they're submerged in the liquid. Of course, if you want to just make mash instead and not put potatoes in the sauce, come on, you know it's gonna be amazing, right? You can do that. You can do whatever you want. In they go, in go the carrots. Work those under, right? The potatoes are also gonna thicken up that sauce. I did rinse them, but they're still gonna thicken up the sauce, which is what we want. I see stuff like this, I get excited. I don't know. Saucy, meaty, braised things. Let's go. One last thing, I'm just gonna tuck in some thyme, just fresh thyme. We'll just pick it out later. If you want, you could tie it up or something, but I really don't mind. Now, crack the lid back on, and we're gonna put it back in the oven for probably about an hour, give or take, but I'll let you know when it comes out. Peace! All right, my friends, here we are. I let it go a little bit longer for another hour and a half, so that's 3.5 hours total. 2 hours with just the beef, an hour and a half with the beef and vegetables. And I'll tell you what, if taking a look at that doesn't get you excited, I don't really think you're human, because that looks insane. Look at the color on it.
Oh. Yup.
Don't put that in.
That's going in.
Don't. Now, at this point, you're gonna be extremely tempted just to dig into this and eat it right away. And by all means, if you want to, you can. I'm not gonna hate on you for it. However, I gotta leave you with the truth today. And the truth is, if you let this rest in the liquid it cooked in for at least 45 minutes to an hour, 30 minutes if you wanna cut it close, it is gonna get so much more tender. Just like you need to rest a steak, you need to rest your braised meat. You may even hear people who make this stuff the day before and then reheat it the next day. That is the ultimate if you have that kind of foresight and patience. But otherwise, let it sit for at least 30 minutes. Nothing left to do but serve it up and give it a taste. Marcus is going to a potluck after this. That's insane. Go dig in, buddy.
I'm not using a knife.
You don't need a knife.
I'll use
Oh my god, am I just gonna do straight meat? Are you sure about this?
Blow it.
I bet that means it's good. I'm no savant.
Oh my god.
I got a feeling that means something good.
I think you have to try this piece right here, Marcus, because that's just nuts. Try that piece right there, dude. That's the piece that set me off. Ooh.
Yeah, whatever. We're supposed to talk because it's work or whatever. It's so good, I'm just gonna keep eating.
That sauce, I'm telling you, the balsamic vinegar, the Worcestershire sauce, the Marmite, all those little things add up to make something that's just like, God, that is so freaking good.
It's so good you could get caught carrying it in a water bottle and you wouldn't even care.
That's right. Like, we got nothing to say, it's a 10, dude, it's a 10. Make it.
Wait, it's the end of the video. You should be putting sneakers on and going to get everything you just saw in the video.
Go get it. Go get a chuck roast before they run out.
They're gonna run out.
They're gonna run out. You want that for
You want to be the
yourself?
one guy not eating this?
Do you want to do that, James? You want to be that guy? I really hope you came out of the year 2024 as a better cook, and if I had something to do with that, that really means the world to me. Thank you for your continued support. And if you like written recipes, definitely check out my Master in the Making ebook that will be linked in the description. And if you want to keep learning today, here are 2 more comfort food recipes that didn't quite make the cut but are seriously amazing. Until next time, you know I love you and I'm out.